Now it's making it a little bit difficult for me to start. I was thinking that the stage will be a little bit smaller, but it's a huge stage. Anyways, as it was mentioned, I'm just coming from vacation, so I'm still in vacation mode. And you will see actually also that my presentation looks kind of still being prepared in Greece. And there are lots of examples that really will make you understand that I was really thinking of my vacation, but also trying to prepare some slides for this session. The first slide that I have here actually is an example through which I'm trying to explain what's the difference between centralized and decentralized systems. Yeah. Yesterday there was a talk actually, and the last slide of the talk was saying that since decentralized plots are limited, then the question will be whether it is decentralized or not, because there is a decision already made. And then my question was, is Bitcoin then decentralized? Because also the amount of Bitcoins are already decided, right? And it's limited. It already comes in the code. So here you have got on the right side a restaurant, a chef. Yeah. Usually when you go to a restaurant, you rely on that chef, the expertise he has got, and you're sure that the dish that he has prepared for you, or at least hopefully, it's much better than something that you can. Since I'm hearing myself, so so it's usually the expectation is that hopefully it's much better than something that you can prepare at home, right? Now, it's a centralized system in the sense that it is the chef who decides how to prepare it. He has got its own recipe. And usually you're not allowed to go to the kitchen and see how he prepares it. So you don't have actually that much to say here, right? Your voice is not here, but you're happy. That's why you're paying. You're actually paying for the service, not to think about how to prepare it, neither actually for your voice to be heard. You rely entirely on the chef, right? But usually when you actually go to a potluck, right, there is a lot of discussion in advance. What are we going to eat? Who is going to bring what? And if someone is missing, then usually an element is missing, right? If, imagine Anna is supposed to actually bring some drink, and she's missing, we don't have drinks, right? So we are left with something really important. So here, you see the role of each member becomes really important. There's a lot of communication in advance, but also there is actually contribution coming from each one of the members, yeah? That's a decentralized system. So in decentralized systems, the voice of everyone is heard. So if we have got someone who doesn't like something, in advance they can say, oh yeah, I don't want actually having meat here. Probably we can have some nachos. We've got lots of nachos actually here. So we can have some nachos, and I'm going to bring those nachos, right? So here we decide together what we want to eat. Everyone takes a responsibility. Everyone contributes. And at the end of the day, hopefully we enjoy as much as going to a restaurant. But you see, if someone is missing, yeah, something important is missing, right? So hopefully by this example, it's clear what is the advantage of a centralized system and what are some advantages of a decentralized system. But if not clear, then I've got more examples, right? Not always we want to actually take a tour guide to show us the city, but when we go to a city where we probably, I was actually asking when I was in Greece from my partner, would you have actually preferred coming with a tour guide to Greece, or you would have actually done it yourself? And he was saying, probably I would, as I did, probably I wouldn't actually have paid for a tour guide. Why? Because there's a lot of information available. I trust the country, it's safe. The culture is kind of similar in the sense that we are both, I mean, I'm coming from Barcelona, Spain, so Greece and Barcelona or Spain, both of them are Mediterranean countries. The food is kind of similar. So he was not expecting lots of strange things from this trip. So he wouldn't have paid for this service if he can actually do it himself and enjoy as much as probably a tour guide can explain to him or actually provide to him, right? While sometimes when we want to actually have some more adventure, then especially when we are doing backpacking trips, yeah? When we are more than 2 people, usually we have lots of meetings, where we should go, what is the itinerary, who likes what. Probably we don't want to do the one thing that one person likes. We would like to combine different preferences here. It takes much more time. Probably you have to come to a consensus, which is time consuming. But at the same time, first of all, you're not actually providing money to a third party, which is the tour guide. But also everyone's voice is here. There is no one actually dominating that much the whole planning part, right? Again, advantages, disadvantages. I really want to actually deliver the message that there is no one right answer. We cannot always say that we want everything decentralized or we want everything centralized. I think we should find an equilibrium between centralization and decentralization. And here again, since I was in Greece, I was thinking of music, food, and trips. So I've got another example. Here you see a soloist who's playing the guitar, and you've got the notes that he's actually looking at, but he's the only one actually who has controls over the notes. So if there is any mistake, any error, most of us as audience probably will not even notice that. Why? Because he's the only one who is playing. We enjoy the music. He's the one who knows actually what he needs to play, the same as in the chef example, right? If the chef suddenly decides to put a little bit more salt or any specific spice, we will not even notice that. Why? It's the first time we are eating it, and we will enjoy it as much as we probably knew what the recipe is. So here you see the decisions are much, much easier when you are playing as a soloist. It's also easier in the sense that if there is any error, probably people will not notice that. But when you're playing in an orchestra, you have to make sure that there is no error. Why? Because there should be an harmony. Everyone is responsible for a piece of note, and they have to exactly play that note. There is a lot of discussion again going on before the notes the music is decided. But once it is decided, everyone has got that exact same copy. Then you will see that I will actually refer to that as a ledger. So you have got the same ledger distributed to everyone. Everyone actually should see what is their responsibility, and they have to play that notes. If they don't play it, that's why usually in orchestras, it's much, much easier to actually spot the error. Again, which one you like? I enjoy as much as actually going to a soloist show as much as I actually going to an orchestra. So here we have got centralization versus decentralization summed up. Again, for the centralized system, you have got single point of control, which means that there is an entity, a person who actually takes decisions. So the decision-making is centralized. There is also, due to the fact that there is one person, one entity controlling everything. For most of you who are developers, you know that it's much, much easier actually for the system to fail, even for you to attack the system. But it's much more efficient in the sense that you do not spend time discussing things, and the decisions comes from one person. When it comes to transparency, then it is less transparent in the sense that, remember the soloist, yeah? If I make an error, no one actually notices. Also the chef part. If I actually change something, no one actually notices. it is actually prone to not only failure, but also manipulation. You can easily manipulate it, right? No one actually will realize it. Why? Because you're the only one who actually has access to it and controls everything and decides what it needs to look like. On the other side, we have got a decentralized system where the control is distributed. We have this collective decision-making. Again, going back to the examples, yeah, it's time-consuming. You have to come to consensus. But everyone's voice is here. Yeah, we are happy most of the time when we know that actually our voice is here. It is more resilient in the sense that there is no single point of failure. Go back to the, here the example of orchestra. Yeah, everyone has got a copy. Everyone knows actually which notes they have to play. So in that way, it's really difficult to, if I'm playing an orchestra, I cannot change a note suddenly because I want. Why? Because everything is decided in advance. I have to play and I have to do exactly what was agreed upon at the beginning. Yeah. Now, I can decide whether I want to be an orchestra or not. So I have got some autonomy. Of course, I know that I'm part of a huge group. I'm not alone, but the decision is mine, whether I want to be part of that group or not. And there is transparency, or the transparency is much, much higher than centralized system. Again, I have got the copy of the old ledger and what are the notes which needs to play. I know that actually what is before my note and what is after my note. I know everything, right? Also, when it comes to the backpacker's trip, I don't want any surprises in the middle of my trip, my itinerary. Everything is decided in advance. And I'm going to actually do what was expected to be done from me. And I know my responsibilities and contributions. Now, going from centralization and decentralization, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of ledgers. Yeah, when, or at least the records that we have got goes back to the clay tablets used by Sumerians, Mesopotamians, the early human civilizations that we have records from, yeah? And we can find actually they were recording things on clay stones, like I'm putting everything on a stone, no one can actually change it, right? That was the idea. Then we see actually papyrus papers being used for record keeping. In China, they were using bamboo. Now, the difference is that now we can actually carry it in a much easier way, and that's why they were using it for much more transaction, recording even easier transactions such as taxations, while during Sumerians, since everything was recorded in stones, they were using it only for important things, right? Like the ones that needed to be recorded in stone, so you don't need to change them often. Tally stakes were used later on. A stick that you have got a copy and someone else has got another copy. So we have got the debtor and creditor, both of them, they've got the same ledger. You put a line, you give me 1 kilo of tomato, I've got a line in my stick, you've got a line in your stick. And this way we actually, at the end of the day, see if we are aligned. Yeah, I mean, you've got more lines, no, I've got the same lines, and you have to pay me how much I have borrowed, right? Of course, in the 14th century, with the first banks, we had the first double entry bookkeeping introduced. And here now we already have paper, so everything is much easier. Still in some countries, there are lots of countries that this paper bookkeeping way is used. That's why even I think in Germany, you can still go to some ministries and you have got huge actually cupboards of lots of books being stored, and all the transactions are stored there. But why? Because no one has had time to digitalize them. Then in the 20th century, we have the first digital ledgers where everything is stored digitally. That is really good. But then it's, again, centralized. In now 21st century, everyone talks about distributed ledger technology, how we can store data in a distributed way. But if you go throughout the whole actually evolution of ledgers, you see that we started actually decentralized. The society used to be decentralized. Why? Because the communities were really small. Everyone can or could remember things. I knew actually what I borrowed, but other people also knew actually what I own. And centralization massively started actually around 14th century. When we started, of course, there were lots of actually centralization happening before, but when we think of financial systems, etc., having huge intermediaries, it is rather after 13th, 12th, 13th century when we had banks created. These bookkeeping was actually transferred to an intermediary person or entity. And that continued throughout the time. So you see, like from 10th, 13th century till 20th century, almost 10th century or 11th centuries, we have created centralized system. Why? Because the society becomes more complex. There are lots of things that we cannot take care of. We rely on experts. We want others actually to take those things out of our shoulders so that we actually have time to do other things, right? That's a good thing about centralization, and we love it. Why? Because it provides us convenience. As human beings, we love convenience. If someone can actually do something on our behalf, let them do that. Why I should actually do it myself, right? Then I do something else. I watch movies. And that's why everything was so centralized in a point that actually people started saying, that's really not what I like. And that's not for everyone. It's not true for everyone. I still love some centralized companies which provide me services. I don't want to actually take care of them myself. I let them to do that. But still, there are some stuff that we believe if they are decentralized, it would be nice, actually. At least we want to actually change the way. We want to go back to the history, and we want to actually have... That's why usually nowadays people want to actually go back to the nature. We want to do the things people used to do. I have seen actually in Hamburg, I didn't see it 2 years before, but now when I walked yesterday in Hamburg, I saw lots of people actually walking barefoot. Why you're walking barefoot? Well, because I want to connect with the land, with the earth, and I want to take the energy back. That was what people used to do actually early ages, when there were no shoes. Yeah, we want to go back to the root. And here also, with the leisures, we want to go back to the root. We want to see if we can again decentralize some systems and like our voice being heard a little bit. Yeah. So that's the evolution I was talking about. So we introduced something called discrete ledger technologies. This is a definition provided by the World Economic Forum, which says it's a type of database that's shared, replicated, and synchronized among members of decentralized network. Here you see I have actually put like decentralized in another color, and that's for a purpose. We call it distributed ledger technology. But in the definition, we actually refer to decentralized databases. So I thought it's really important that actually we distinguish what's the difference between distributed and decentralized. Well, all decentralized systems are distributed, which means there are different nodes, different people having the copy, etc. Not all distributed systems are decentralized. Why? Because for decentralization, we should not have one single person controlling everything. We want everyone's decisions or voices here. And that's all about decentralization. Usually, when we talk, actually, I'm not a developer. I'm not a coder. Yeah, I'm more an economist, a business person. I see there is a huge misconception between distribution and decentralization. People claim that actually they're using decentralized system while in fact, the system is just distributed. That is when you have got a bank which actually claims that they are using blockchain, and you're like, yeah, how you're using blockchain? We have got multiple copy of our ledger in different places. Yeah, but that is distribution. That's not decentralization, right? When it comes to distributed ledger technologies, we have got multiple ways or multiple types of distributed ledger technology, and one type of that distributed ledger technology is blockchain. I'm not going to go through all the slide and the content in the table, but for me, the most important thing is that we cannot use the word DLT the same as blockchain. They are not the same. There are other ways that still you can have a decentralized system, a distributed system, which is not actually blockchain, which does not use the structure that we call actually blockchain. So what is blockchain? You probably know much more than me, but this is just a reminder. Blocks chained together. If you are not using this, if you're doing encryption, that's not blockchain, that's encryption. If you're just distributing the ledger, that's distributed ledger, that's not blockchain, yeah? Do not confuse things. And there has been a huge hype on this, and this is something I'm still struggling when I talk with people. I'm using blockchain, okay, what are you really doing? Yeah, I'm encrypting things. Yeah, you're encrypting, right? It's not blockchain. Of course, it's used as a component in the blockchain for things to work, but blockchain contains two words, blocks, chained together. Yeah? I don't want to, again, here talk a lot about blockchain because I'm sure most of you are much, much more expert in the area than I do, but the first example of distributed ledger technology, mainly blockchain, Bitcoin, that actually started all this discussion that still we are having. Still, everyone is actually trying to find out how to create the same system as Bitcoin that can actually get rid of intermediaries, the trusted parties that are involved and give back the power to the users, to the citizens, right? And that is when we also started putting the decentralized word in front of everything. Decentralized finance, decentralized health, decentralized supply chain, everything is now decentralized. But what was the aim of this decentralization at the beginning? It was how we can reimagine and reconstruct traditional systems such as finance, healthcare, supply chain, that I will give more examples in my next slides, in a decentralized, hopefully by now you should know what I mean by decentralized, transparent, and open access manner, leveraging technologies such as blockchain. It not always is just blockchain technology, to eliminate intermediaries, increase inclusion, and empower individuals. So most of actually the whole discussion was rather, or why there were huge communities, it was more actually about empowerment of individuals. That's why most people are convinced actually to work on this area or sector, because they believe that in a point, individuals will be much more empowered because now they have, or their voices here, they have actually the right to change things and make things work the way they want. It started with finance. Yesterday, there was a talk in the morning by Stefan, and something I took away from that one was access doesn't equal ownership. And it made me think, yeah, that's true. I rent my house. The new tenant is not the owner. He just has access, or she has access to my house. Usually, when it comes to Web3, by the way, I'm working with lots of startups, and usually they love to claim that you own things. The whole thing about NFT is ownership, right? While we are talking about access, it's not really ownership. I can give thousands of examples of, you own a diamond, I'm giving you the NFT, even if the diamond is lost. This was the slide from yesterday's presentation. Even if the diamond is destroyed, you still own it because you have got a really unique NFT that represents it. Where is the diamond? I don't care about NFT, give me the diamond. Yeah, I bought actually the diamond, not just the representation. Access is not always actually ownership. It doesn't really equal to ownership. Now here we've got lots of examples of what is called DeFi, decentralized finance. Now we hear it everywhere. Lending and borrowing platforms, here we've got, yeah, don't get me wrong, they are real examples and there are lots of benefits. We will talk about them later on. We have got lots of uses of the technology in finance, and not always it is for decentralization. if it was for internalization, what are these banks doing? Why they're still actually using the technology? So it's not really anymore about decentralization. It's more about how we make the process more efficient. And here you see the examples, tons of actually companies coming to the market. So we are claiming that we are actually eliminating intermediaries, but we are creating new intermediaries with new business models. Hopefully, some of them are much more efficient than the previous ones. But one of the examples that yesterday was again mentioned when it comes to decentralized finance was remittances and cross-border, which I believe can actually be done using the technology. So I really believe one of the best actually use cases in remittances as cross-border payments. But probably we will not have it soon. Why? Because again, when we talk about decentralization, we should have consensus, lots of discussions, decision made in advance, cross-border. Countries actually should agree here, otherwise we cannot use it. But it can be a really good use case. For healthcare, again, there are lots of actually use cases, lots of companies coming to the market, lots of new business models. But for me, what makes sense, I see Oliver here. We had a huge discussion, 3-hour discussion yesterday, actually. And I was saying this is one of the best use cases for me because I was in Greece, I had an infection. No one could actually access my healthcare data. I had to stay in the hospital for 8 hours. And that's an infection that usually happens to me, so it was not the first time. And I was trying to explain to the doctor that I'm used to it. Just give me an antibiotic and I will be okay. But they were like, no, I cannot give you an antibiotic if we do not go through all the analysis. It took me 8 hours. They did the analysis. And at the end, you were like, yeah, you're right. So here is the antibiotic. I took the antibiotic. Like, if we have a shared ledger of the health database, at least in Europe, I wouldn't have actually spent now 8 hours because the doctor would have seen there's something happening to me usually, and hopefully he or she would have actually given me an antibiotic. But again, here, I don't want companies to do it. I really want healthcare systems to come together, countries to come together, to create that shared database that gives access. First empowers me because now it's me actually who owns that data. And if I want, then I give access to that data. If it's a private practitioner or even a public hospital, then it's me actually who's giving access to that data, to that entity, right? So here for me, healthcare makes sense, but it makes sense not because, again, a new clinic is encrypting my data and creating a wallet for me. It is rather, it makes sense when the governments agree, they come to a consensus. We are giving that data to the customer, and it should be actually accepted by the hospital. And it's the consumer who gives access to the data to the entity, right? Supply chain, again, there are lots of examples, but here again, we are not talking about decentralization. We are talking about making the process efficient, how we can make or get rid of some intermediaries using the technology. Again, we've got lots of examples of companies here that I will not go through. I'm almost on time. But what is the observation that I have actually came across throughout the last 7 years that I'm spending my time just investigating what's blockchain, what are the use cases, what are the companies doing? There are lots of security breaches, though the technology is claiming, or at least Web3 is claiming that actually it's making the system much more efficient. Why there are security breaches? Not because of the technology, it's because of the way that it's used, right? We also see lots of high costs associated to this. Specifically, you guys should know much more than me. Replication of the database comes with a huge cost. Why should I have thousands and millions of the same database? If with 3 or 5, actually, I have the same, almost the same security as having 100. User experience hurdles. Again, I was saying to Oliver yesterday, I cannot expect my mom actually to, she already actually struggles remembering her password for centralized systems. I cannot expect her to have the private key stored in multiple places, make sure that no one accesses it. Now you have got this off-chain storage, online storage, etc., etc. But apart from this, now I'm also a lot in metaverse stuff. The user experience really sucks. You don't have the same actually interface when it comes to these decentralized systems. Going back to the backpack trips, they're much messy than when you have a tour guide having a plan itinerary for you. There are lots of decisions. And that's why I don't believe that soon we will get the perfect user interfaces if the systems are not more centralized. And you will see that this is also another observation. Systems that claims to be centralized, in most cases, they are not centralized. Either you've got lots of token holders. We've got what is called DAOs, that eventually they're new small corporates. You've got a shareholder which has got 51% of the tokens, and they've got 49% token holders. Their decisions are coming from the one who has got 51% tokens, right? It is not what decentralization is about. There is a huge also backlash from regulatories, or there is a regulatory uncertainty when it comes to all these things, because we are used to actually centralized system, and the governments we have got are the biggest centralized system that we have created. Do we want to go to anarchy? No, at least I don't actually want to live in an anarchic society. There might be some people who would like to actually live in an anarchic society, but I'm used to this centralized. I want to actually feel safe. Oliver was saying, I don't want to be killed by someone and then, or maybe injured, and there is no police actually protecting me. We want those governments. And it's not just governments. I enjoy going to restaurants. I don't want to get rid of restaurants. Especially in Germany, you love insurance. I don't know why. I'm not that much pro-insurance, but in Germany, everyone loves insurance companies. Why? Because you don't want to take care of all the risk that is involved in the decisions that you're making. You want someone else actually to take responsibility of the risks that you have generated in most cases. But if you love insurance companies, if you want to get rid of risk, you love centralization. You want someone else actually to do things on your behalf. Most of you as developers, you might actually use some software to store your passwords. You like actually centralization. Why? Because you don't want to take care of your passwords yourself. You want a software, platform, a device or something to take care of your passwords. It's not easy to remember them, right? And knowing that actually the government is a centralized system, I'm like, how I deal with the decentralized system if I'm already a central entity? And in most cases, for me, it's much, much easier, actually, if I'm dealing with another centralized system, because I'm dealing with one person. I'm not dealing with hundreds of people who is actually blaming the next person for the things happening, right? That's what's happening in DAOs. Yeah, I didn't vote actually for that proposal. I even didn't read it. Someone else actually voted, so the majority, it was based on majority, but I was not part of that majority, yeah? I want to actually find who decides, and I want to deal with that person. If something goes wrong, you actually decided. I want to blame you for that. We've got lots of interoperability challenges. Why? Because again, we love centralization. Everyone comes up with their own system. That's my DAO. I'm decentralized. I'm actually separate, or I'm different than Sandbox. The things that you have with Decentraland doesn't work for Sandbox. Why? That's my system. That's a system I have created for my community. I otherwise actually lose you to another competitor. So we are creating another way or another centralized system that are believed to be decentralized, right? And the huge thing that is happening here right now is the speculative behavior. Everyone wants to get a chunk of the pie. I want to be rich. I want to create my own token. Why should I actually even care about your token if I can have my own token and I convince you to use it, and then even I have an idea, invest in my idea, then that idea becomes big, then my tokens actually are re-evaluated. The value of those tokens are much, much higher if I actually convince you to use them. And unfortunately, this speculative behavior has drawn attention from all the good things that we can actually benefit if the technology is used properly. Why? Because we are human beings. We want to be rich. We want to have a good life. Right now, let's actually say that I'm giving power to you, but I'm not giving power to you. I want to get something for me, right? That would be actually, now the number is not really, but for me, that would be around 70% of all the use cases we have got right now in the market. I want to get out something for myself. I don't care about you that much. And then, of course, we have seen lots of network congestions, but I will leave it to you. I think you know much more than me if you have already coded. It's not, I mean, everything is not bad. And something I really, really, really like that has happened throughout the last 12 years is that we have seen innovative business models actually emerging thanks to this technology. Now we are trying to come up with new ways of doing things, not only because we want to benefit just us from it, but also this nature of humans being egoistic, at the end of the day, actually also benefit the society sometimes. I have got lots of other things here that are some benefits of using the technology, but something I would really, really stress is this new business models. I think we've seen lots of business models, new business models. At the end, I came up with my own kind of decision tree. I published it in an article. There are some other decision trees. I was told that I've got 1 minute. So here you see that in most cases, we really, really don't need to use blockchain, neither distributed ledger technologies. We only use this if all the answers are yes. I cannot go throughout the whole chain, but if you take a picture of, or if you go to my article, you can actually see what all the decision tree is about. The conclusion, will everything be decentralized? Hopefully no, because otherwise I will lose the restaurant that I'm going. And I love actually food. And I love actually the food being cooked by an expert. So I hope that there will be centralization, but if there is a room for decentralization, which means that, again, it makes my life easier, why not? So if it's about my convenience, why not? I want everything to be decentralized. If it's not about my convenience, let's just stick with centralization. Thank you so much. Now I open the floor for any questions that you might have.